Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered today to mourn the sad loss of our teaser trailer for the 6th Darktide class. And yes, perhaps it will be released 1 week from today, but it certainly weighs heavily on our hearts. We're joined here today by one of our fellow mourners, Joe Plays Games. Joe, how are you feeling about this tragic news?
This is a dark time, not just for me as a content creator, but for all of us as Darktide fans.
I know. How will we recover as a community and forge forward? I don't know. I just don't know. But in seeking to sort of get this negativity out, I figured we would just do a little exercise today. Guys, today is going to be a doomer video. We're going to be exploring the worst case scenarios, the absolute apocalyptic scenarios. And if that makes you feel really sad, I'm going to be putting a picture of my adorable dog Bernie in the corner down here. You can look at him anytime you get sad and depressed about the goings on in your favorite video game. But yes, I think Joe and I have both released our videos on this topic, and we will be sharing our opinions about what is actually going on. If you didn't catch that near the end of the video and at the very end of the video, because this is a Joe video, and every Joe video has to have a massive surprise reveal at the end. I will be telling Joe that I actually know what happened. I found out the exact details of what caused the change, and I'm going to be sharing with her. The surprise reveal. She didn't even know that we planned this from the start. So
I did not.
So stay tuned for that, guys. But I think the first terrible scenario is, and this is probably one that most people think it is that Fat Shark is really, really behind schedule. Is that they just didn't hit their mark here, and they're desperately hoping to catch up. What do you think?
Yes.
I mean, you see people saying this?
Yeah, I definitely do. I've seen a lot of people saying it's pretty clear that they just didn't finish their own marketing materials to get them approved on time, or that they are super behind with the class. The other thing that I see a lot of people saying is that they intentionally delayed it by a week to try and get extra hype built. Extra hype momentum, so that's what the extra week is for. But a lot of people seem to think that it's to essentially try to buy them more time, because they aren't as far along on the class itself as they were hoping to be, or that they just straight up didn't have the marketing materials done.
Yeah, I definitely saw people saying that they could see that being Games Workshop or some interplay there, and that they maybe had it ready but not with enough time to spare. I mean, it would make sense. I think a lot of us were definitely feeling that with the last update, which was very short term. I mean, even you and I, as content creators who work with Fat Shark, they were incredibly in crunch time for the Bound by Duty update. It was literally just a couple of days that we had notice of what was coming out. In fact, the community had no news about what was actually going to be in the update. And I think that was as a result of they were working so hard on other stuff, and to get all that wrapped up for that it was kind of crunch. So I could see a scenario in which they are actually behind schedule. Now, I mean, it is quite a bold assertion to say no, but for sure though, December 2nd is the class release.
Yeah.
If they don't hit that, I mean, shoot, I'm just throwing my hands up in the air. I've been defending them so far, but if they fuck that one up, I just don't know what I'm gonna do. I think both of us mentioned pitchforks and torches in our videos.
Yes. yes, I did. Well, and I'm completely on the same page as you. Just from my personal background in what I did for work in a past life, there were just some telltale signs of essentially what Fat Shark put out, as far as explaining what's happening with this whole announcement
the little
delay.
Disclaimer.
And then also the fact that they felt so confident in saying December 2nd that right. I'm on the same page as you about I think that most likely this was probably just some conflict of expectations or something like that, having to do with the marketing materials between them and Games Workshop. And Games Workshop probably just having some like last minute things that they were like, oh, we can't approve this. But I
Perhaps.
mean, 100% if this announcement gets delayed again, or again,
Yeah, if this
that's
date gets
coming
pushed
out.
back further, if the release gets pushed back further,
That's coming out swinging hard to say December 2nd on that release date.
yes.
That's only 3 weeks away. That's coming out swinging hard. So if that gets delayed, I think I'm on the same page as you, where I'll just throw my hands up in the air and be like, well, shit, I was wrong. I was on the
I
wrong
call
side of the
myself,
fence
yeah,
on that
whoops.
one.
I guess GW is innocent. But like, yeah, so as we approach that date, if we start to get, if we get the trailer next week, I'll definitely feel better. And as we get closer and closer, but if we don't get the trailer next week, then I think we might actually be veering on the second Doomsday scenario, or like the second, like really crazy pull. I'm holding out like a 2% chance that this is actually real, but there is a potential, right, that this is a last second pivot. Either Games Workshop or Fat Shark said, this isn't the one for right now. We're going to change it up. I mean, this was, I've known other companies to do a similar thing where like they have prepared some sort of DLC, they prepared some sort of update, and then they get the focus test results back, or they just decide internally, hey, this isn't the one we're going with this, and they just kind of scrap and go a different avenue. And that's part of Fat Shark's, or at least Darktide's development history, is like having these ideas and then going a different route, like where they had the idea to release a new class every quarter, and then they like switched from that to going to making talent trees instead. There is a chance that they have scrapped it and are just making a hard pivot to their next most prepared class. I think that would be kind of crazy given the amount of work and time that goes into this.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, possibly, just because like going back, kind of seeing historically what we've seen happen in Darktide as like it has been launched, and then the things that we've seen added to it over time. I think, and this is mostly from like a lore perspective, but there's things like the miasmic malignifier just suddenly appearing, kind of like quietly as just like a background addition in some missions. That always stuck out to me as something that felt like it was always supposed to be
Wait,
there.
what is that?
You're gonna think this is the stupidest fucking thing. You'd be like, why, Joe, do you pay attention to this? So it looks like a potbelly stove.
Okay.
I'll see if I can send you a picture.
It's in like the skybox of Darktide. That's in
No,
this
it's
game?
on this.
Huh?
It's on the skybox. It's like an environmental element. So Hab Draco, you have the Hab Draco tree.
Okay.
You have some of the boxes that are like cover and stuff like that. And then if you walk around the back, behind some of those cover boxes, and you look, there's like a potbelly stove looking thing that's in 2 pieces, and that's something called a miasmic malignifier. They have it in the train level 2, the rolling steel.
Gotcha.
Hang on, I'm typing up.
They're little like pox spreading like things. They spread
Yes,
miasma.
but they are specifically Death Guard terrain is what's interesting about that. And that was something that just like it kind of just got added into the environmentals of Darktide. It seems in the Path to Redemption update, whenever they reworked that Hab Draco finale and made it look different.
Yeah.
And it's been showing up in a lot of levels, specifically where Admonition seems to be the more prominent faction in the goings on, at least in the story things sense.
You gotta wonder if that's like, yeah, like if that actually represents like, oh, like we just realized, because I do feel that they didn't really have the admonition thing planned like right from the get-go, where they have really, it was like scabs and dregs, and then they started calling it admonition. To me at least, as a casual plot observer, that seemed to come out of left field.
Completely fair. I do personally think that they have had all this planned from the beginning, and the miasmic malignifier always stuck out to me as something that was like a terrain element that they probably always intended to have in there, but just like for some reason it didn't have approval or something like that.
I could see that.
In my mind, if that were to be the case, I would assume that it's because that would be such a Death Guard heavy thing. My cat just knocked like 5 million things over. That's really cool. Sorry if that picked up on the mic.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. So.
Okay, good. So, there's things like that. We also know from the interview with Victor Magnuson that they had a short list of 3 classes
Yes.
they said that they want to work on. Obviously, we know now one was RBDs. That leaves 2 more. It very well may be the case that they have like multiple things like lines out with Games Workshop, things that they're
Yeah.
working on, things that they're
Pivoting from
working on
2 to
trying
3.
to get well, things that they're also just trying to get approval on.
Mhm.
And so maybe it just like they had approval right out of the gate for one thing, then suddenly they're, Games Workshop gets back to them like, all right, actually, we think that this one's good to go now too. So,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe,
I think that leads us into the discussion. I think we should just kind of like, put out there as a cohesive voice. We didn't collaborate on our videos talking about this. I think both of us
mm-mm.
just have that, I don't know, cynicism about the world and how these things work. When you look at the evidence or what Fat Shark released to us as a community, which was let me actually pull it up. It's right here on Steam, isn't it? It is front page of Steam. To ensure we meet the quality standards of our marketing assets, we had to make the difficult decision to delay the announcement of our new class until November 18th, 2025. We are working hard to resolve this and be ready for next week to showcase the new class in the light it deserves. Okay, rest assured, et cetera, et cetera. So I think both of us read that with a very cynical lens, and I think that is probably the appropriate lens to have here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, that felt very familiar just because like I used to work helping run a company, a small business, with somebody who was apt to change her mind frequently.
Mhm.
And then also on the other side of that, dealing with clients buying luxury products who are very particular is how
Yeah.
I'll put it. And so whenever I saw the whole like in order to ensure like what was it, meeting the quality standards of marketing assets,
Of our marketing
I was like
assets.
I was like, I
Such a
can just
strange phrase.
feel I was well, also it's just like I was like, I have written things like that before,
Mhm.
and never in the history of writing phrases like that has that ever not meant someone is telling me that I need to do this and I am not particularly
Yeah.
enthused about it.
And I can't name them either. And
And
I
I
think,
cannot talk about that.
yeah, it would be uncouth to talk about it. And I've been seeing people saying, like, well, why don't they just like come out and say, like, hey, our IP partner said, like, so there is a clause in a lot of contracts. I mean, Joe and I, we have signed NDAs with Fat Shark, and I think in there somewhere there is terminology about like we aren't supposed to like abuse or defame them. We can be critical of them, but we can't like go out of our way to like say like, oh yeah, like the people that run the company, they're terrible and they're defrauding. Like they just don't like make up lies about them and
Right.
try to like burn them down. And they might probably do have that terminology, like something like that in their relationship with Games Workshop. GW holds
Oh,
all of the cards, right? So they could make them put whatever they wanted in that contract and they'd still sign it.
yeah. I mean, like, even with physical products and stuff like that, if you're dealing with something high end, you have like non-disparagement clauses in
Mhm.
most contracts if you're going to be like, a distributor or have the ability to like put out a licensed product or something like that, especially with something like this where you're looking at Fat Shark being granted a license to make and publish IP material for Games Workshop in like their big, this is their big IP, this is their
Right.
baby. And so I have absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Fat Shark has non-disparagement agreements that are far and beyond like the very minimal stuff that you and I have in
Oh
our
yeah, yeah, yeah.
standing stuff with them.
Because
Because like
they're
for the
protecting like stock values. Like this is a
oh
big company
yeah,
versus a big company. They had lawyers for this shit. I just signed it,
oh
whatever.
yeah. I mean, like, I think as far as I recall, I think the most that's in like ours with Fat Shark is basically like, please don't call people to action to harass
Yeah,
us.
don't
It's like,
harass us.
yeah.
And no racism or bigotry. Dang,
Yeah.
they
Just like
got
your
us.
basic human decency stuff. Whereas like I'm sure that, they're the legalese in a Games Workshop contract is probably staggering.
Right, yeah. And even if they didn't legally have like their lips sealed and their hands bound, it would do whatever the opposite of behooving them is to like criticize their masters in any way, shape, or form. Like, this
Yeah.
IP is being granted to them. They probably pay a licensing fee or give a cut of their profits, right, already. But like, Fat Shark and Darktide don't make them that much money on the grand scale of things. I think that they would rather just cut maybe they wouldn't even just cut the IP, but good luck making anything really cool that you want in the future. Because a lot of that comes down to the relationship you have with your boss. I think that applies to anyone who's had a boss at work, right? You can get a lot of leeway. You can get permission to, kind of bend the rules or, just get your own ideas implemented better if you have a better person-to-person relationship with your boss, with the people that control your workflow. And I think that's something that they are very keenly aware of, is that there is there's a relationship that they have to maintain. They can't just go around like saying GW made us do this. No, they got to take it on the chin. They got to take the hit to their own reputation in order to preserve the more important thing, which is that they still have access to do the things they want. And I mean, I won't speak too specifically, but I have spoken to people at Fat Shark, and they told me they have very cool things planned, or like, they are hoping to have those things planned, but all that, everything that comes to Darktide has to pass through the GW's doors. So they have to play nice in order to get this stuff approved.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we know that also that that's something that isn't unique to Fat Shark either, because like
Right.
Saber and Focus Entertainment, somebody from one of those two companies went on the record. I remember an article where like they talked about how like just barely touched on, essentially what it's like working with Games Workshop behind the scenes whenever you're making a video game for
Yeah.
them. And I imagine with Space Marines as your main focus, it probably has to be like on steroids at that point. But they were talking about how like they were like, yeah, at one point like things were delayed in our processes because like they were so specific about like the ankles on the power armor being lore accurate. So like we know that Games Workshop has like a high
These things
degree
they'll get hung
of
up on.
essentially like I guess I'd call it like lore check quality control kind
Right.
of
I
stuff.
mean, these are people that like, if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, right? You've had those dungeon masters who are just super anal about every detail, and it really behooves you to just say yes, okay, I'm doing my perception check, like be with them every step of the way, because it's up to them to make the rules. Like they could, and all
Yeah.
the people, these are basically dungeon masters but for real life. The people that work with the different companies, they can interpret the rules. They can look at a thing and say, that's a good like artistic interpretation of how it would work in lore. Like for instance, in Darktide, las guns shouldn't have recoil in lore, but they decided they would to make it feel better. So they had to get that past the GW, and like I'm certain there was probably a big discussion about it. But like, yeah,
Probably.
if you like keep pissing off the people who will dread P, it's gonna make it worse and worse, and it's just gonna be like pulling teeth. I think the thing that really like to me was just so made it so obvious that we were dealing with some situation like that was again just the absence of any real excuse that we've seen time and time again. And it made no sense to me that this would be something that Fat Shark would do to themselves. Like, there's no world in which you set your own due date and then you don't just deliver something on that due date.
Right.
It would just be, I mean, because they knew that they were going to get this flack, and they have to be just there really, really pissed right now that they are, they're hard at work. They're redoing whatever they did. And I think someone left a comment, probably in both of our videos. I saw a comment, hey, shout outs if this is you, by the way. Let me know in the comments. But they said, like, GW noticed a miscolored brick on the wall in the
Oh, yeah,
background.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's like, it literally could be as something as small as that, right? We have to remember that Games Workshop is a absolute, like, gargantuan company as compared to somebody like Fat Shark. Like they represent a very, very small portion of their business, and they're probably, in their defense, I guess this is in their defense, they probably have a lot of stuff going on. Like they're juggling a lot of moving pieces, and Fat Shark, like getting back to Fat Shark, might not be at the top of the list. Hitting Fat Shark's deliverable deadlines is definitely not on their priorities. And so, yeah, I could totally foresee a situation in which they just kind of put it off. And Fat Shark's like, hey, we got like 4 days to go. And they said, give me one more day to think about it. And they said, actually, never mind. We're going to have to kick you back out to the drawing board in this one.
Yeah. And also, I think the other thing, too, that really spoke to me about like... Personally, I think that the whole angle of like, oh, well, it's Fat Shark just trying to drum up more hype about the class, or it's just that they missed their deadlines or whatever.
That's the least likely, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's the least likely, but also I think that's the more cynical take, because what you also have to remember is that like we as a community, for those of us who have been playing Darktide since the beginning, and even this goes back to even like shit with Vermintide and Vermintide 2, something that as a community, as players of the game, we have been like basically on our hands and knees just like begging for is a roadmap.
Yeah.
Like,
and
right?
communication, like clear communication
about
the
and a
stuff
roadmap about the games, about what to expect. Literally, you don't have to tell us that it's going to be Gene Stealers or whatever. If you want to save that for a big reveal, great. But at least tell us that like at least tell us that like something is coming in the future, so then like we know, so then like everybody isn't just uninstalling the game.
Yeah,
they're not completely putting it out of their minds, keeping it out of their rotations. And they finally did that, right? So they finally did
they
that.
Immediately
And
fuck
then
it up.
I cannot fathom a world where me as somebody who is like a decision maker in a company is like, all right, we like, for them to finally do that, to put out a roadmap after years, literal years of us of a community asking for this, they must have felt pretty damn confident about what they were going to deliver. And I really have a feeling that this was just a very unfortunate like comedy of errors, I guess is what I'd call it, between Games Workshop and them, where, and I'm not even necessarily trying to say like, boo Games Workshop, fuck them. They're the villains here, because like it's their IP. They have a stake in protecting these things, but it probably was just like a really unfortunate happenstance.
I don't attribute it to malevolence. Like, I don't think that Games Workshop necessarily is like trying to fuck with them. They could be. There is potentially a reality in which they're like just jerking their chain, just being like, yeah, we don't care about your due dates, like, just grovel or whatever. But I think that probably more like they're just kind of ambivalent to like what Fat Shark has going on. So I kind of, in my mind's eye, I'm seeing it as being a like, okay, here's the idea, and then Games Workshop says like, okay, and they said, okay, we're gonna start working on this, and then they come and deliver it later, like, hey, how's this look? And they're like, it's good. Okay, so we're gonna deliver it on this date, sure. And then they got like kind of like tacit agreement, and then at the last second they're like, actually, you know what, we've been thinking, and it just didn't leave any time. And remember, like, there's no, like, when you're working with a company like this, I don't imagine they have a specific contract that they're signing, like, okay, we both are signing off that we agree that this is the final version. It's Games Workshop's IP. They can change it at any time, right? If they decide tomorrow that Ultramarines are red, right? I mean, they've done stuff like that in the past, and that is up to them to do. So if they decided that whatever this class is not canon, or they just need to change this thing about it, they can do that at any time. They could come in today and say that RBs needs to be taken out of the game, and they'd have to do it. So that's the level of control we're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think the fact that like the announcement, the update that the announcement is going to be delayed, the fact that it came in so late, like that's also one of the things that people are really upset about, is like,
it was 2 hours before the actual like.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there are people who are like, oh, I woke up at like 2 a.m. so that I could watch it, or like, I said no to like doing other
you
things
get to sleep some more.
that I wanted to do. And there are people who are upset about that. And I totally feel you there. But I think that also the fact that it came in, that the announcement that it was going to be delayed was at 0 hour probably indicates more that Fat Shark was actively like on the horn
Pinging
with
them
Games
like back and
Workshop
forth, like
being
please,
like,
please, please, like can
can
we
we
just like
please,
is
please,
this
please,
good enough? Yeah.
yeah, can we please, like, here's the changes that we made. This is what, like maybe some updates that we'll make after the fact. Can we just get this, approved so we can put this through? Because like we had this on our roadmap, we had X, Y, and Z. And,
Yeah.
they probably were just like actively trying to get it
I
resolved until they knew
right.
it just wasn't going to pan out.
I don't think this is gonna violate any NDA. I don't want to talk outside of school or whatever, but like as someone who has worked with Fat Shark and therefore Games Workshop, because everything that they put on their channel has to be approved by GW. The video that I did for Fat Shark had to be approved by GW, and when I submitted it to them, I actually had footage in my video that included modded gameplay, and they ran that up, and like she was like, "This might be okay. I'll get back to you on it." And this was, I delivered it, like 24 hours before the release. And it wasn't until the next morning that I found out they were like, actually, we're going to need a version with no modded gameplay because it doesn't represent the gameplay experience. People that are watching for the first time will be like, what the hell is this? Why can't I get that in the game? So that makes sense to me. But like the turnaround time for those things, if we'd had to go ping pong that discussion back and forth a couple more times because we just had so many and that's just for a single video. Like, imagine, for that
the whole
amateur
game.
contracted guy is making, this could be something as involved as a whole element of the class. You never know what it could be. But like those sort of discussions can just put you in like the mire forever where you're just stuck in circles and just in marketing meetings. And
yes.
I also don't want to just, before people accuse us of being shills or whatever, but like, I don't want to say that this isn't some element of Fat Shark incompetence here, right? There is elements in failures across the scope of Darktide that are to do with Fat Shark, dropping the ball and fumbling an otherwise good delivery or whatever it is. I won't say they're blameless, and they might not be blameless in this occasion, but I can't in all like honesty look at this and not see the red flags of like, oh yeah, this was a corporate board meeting sort of decision.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you there. I mean, like I said earlier, if it turns out that like, either more deadlines start getting missed or it becomes clear that
then we're in the doomsday.
then absolutely I'll throw my hands up. I'll say I was wrong. Here's how things were most likely missed, or things weren't followed through on by Fat Shark on their end. But from everything, so personally I think that the radio silence basically from our BDs through
cosmetics wise, yeah.
well, also just everything. Like it just went dead silent more or less.
Yeah.
There were a couple events in there, but they were more of the older style of event where they didn't have like any story element or anything like that hooked back into the meaning of the event. It was just like, we took one type of enemy, cranked it up to 11. There's your event. And I know I've pretty sure I've heard you say the same in your videos, but I've been of the mind that like anniversary winter time has to be like brewing something. Like something's got to be cooking. And I think that for Fat Shark to come out like they did and be like, here's a roadmap. Here, we're committing to a new class. Here's the announcement date to the new class. Here's a bunch of stuff for Vermintide 2 as well, because it's like 10 years of Tide.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they really took this, that they really were trying to like up the ante and use this as an opportunity to show like we're gonna communicate. We're proud of our work. We have been doing a lot of stuff.
Is pretty hard. Like this is definitely more content than they had in the past. Like I'll give them credit for that. So as long as, like you're saying, as long as they're hitting their other deliverable dates, I'm not super worried. But if those start failing, if those start falling down, then we know like something is cooked, and we are we're in for it. But as I promised, guys, since we're here at roughly the end of the video, I did promise I'm gonna reveal to you guys and Joe. I know the actual reason why it got delayed, and you ready for this? It's pretty crazy.
I I'm as ready as I'll ever be. I have no idea
I'll
what kind
bleep
of
it out for the
bullshit you're
viewing
about to
audience.
tell me.
Yeah, so they actually are pivoting the class. GW shut it down. Guys, the original class, I got confirmation I can share this, it was going to be a Sister of Battle, and it had a very heavy lean for the Gunnar demographic, and GW said no on that. So sorry, guys. It won't be Sister of Battle Gunnar edition. I think they're going with some sort of like, you know, rattling slash Nurgle based character to better better match their player base. So sorry guys, hate to break it to you here.
Oh my lord. They went from Sister Repentia to rattling.
And like a really gross rattling too, yeah.
Not even a good, not even
Not
like
even
a normal
good, yeah,
Hobbit-looking one,
not you
just
can't
like
be handsome. You can be as handsome as the rest of the Darktide characters are.
It's the actual Skaven.
It's just a skate, dude. I would pay money to play a like Storm Vermin in this game, though. Actually,
I know. Actually, I would
that'd be
too.
awesome. Yeah, please make that mod somebody. Anyway, guys, that's enough shooting the shit. Yeah, we're confident that they're gonna get this class to us on time, and that's really all that matters, honestly. So stay tuned to both Joe Plays Games over there on her channel, link it in the description, and here with me, Mr. E. Any last thoughts, Joe?
No, not really.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
what? I
Good.
just I don't know.
Let's wrap it up there
I've
then, guys. Oh, wait, she's got
said
something.
everything I have to say.
Okay, that's it. All right. That's a rare occasion, guys. We'll call that a win in our book. And we'll see you next time. Bye.